Hi guys, this is Donna with Love Rocks, and we are back with another 4th of July rock. Before we get started, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and make sure that you leave a comment under this video. That's how you'll get into the free drawing for this rock. So let's get started. First of all, I found this gnome, this particular gnome. I was having a hard time finding one that I liked. I found this particular gnome out of an adult coloring book. So I will list the coloring book and the creator of that book in the description. Let's give her credit for the picture. And maybe if you have time or if you want, you can grab the same coloring book. I got it off of Amazon. There's a lot of great gnome ideas in there for different holidays. Okay, let's get started with this. I just did the normal sketching. For anybody who has not watched one of my videos or you're new to this hobby, I'll kind of go over how I sketch a gnome. I start with the hat. No matter what I'm doing with the gnome, the hat is usually the focal point. And if it's not the focal point, it is at least the second focal point. So for this one, the hat's important, and so is the little firework that he's holding. That's where your eye is drawn to for the most part. So I'm going to make sure that that hat gets in put in first, and then I will kind of just vaguely draw in where his beard's going to go because I need to know spacing. And then at the bottom, I'll square up the bottom of his shoes and put in his shoes. And it really is that simple. Once all that's in, then I'll let it dry and I will sketch in the firework. There's just no sense in putting the firework in now. I'm going to paint over all of that. Once you get that sketched in, then you can start with your paint. So I'm using ink spot blue. If you watch again my videos, I really like that color. Ink spot blue is one of those colors that if you add a little bit of white to, or you add a little bit of black to, it's got enough primary color to it. Doesn't have a lot of different colors mixed into it, that it stays true to its color. You don't wind up with some oddball weird color when you add things to it. So that's why I like that one. It's a little bit dark. Sometimes I'll lighten it up with a little bit of white. Sometimes I use it by itself. In this particular instance, I used the blue for the whole hat, and then I just added a touch of white in order to do the highlights. I always have my light source coming from the right-hand side going down. And if I keep it on that same side for everything that I paint, it makes it very easy when I go in to do my highlights. I don't have to really think about it. I know exactly where they're going to go. So I don't flip it back and forth much. Now, the red that I'm putting in is Cardinal red. It's not my favorite, but right now I'm having a hard time finding the one that I like. So Cardinal red seems to be the closest that I'm able to find. Most of the time I don't have trouble, but I don't know. Right now maybe they're replacing colors in the area that I live or something. I have had a little bit of trouble replacing the one I like. So we're going to get those highlights in. And you'll notice that I kind of put in the nose real quick. That was so it would dry a little bit before I came back in to do the highlights and the shadows on it. So I'll do that. I'll skip around on a picture because I've got to have areas dry before I add more paint to it. And so that's all I'm doing on this. Is I was waiting for the hat to dry so I could put the highlights in. I put the nose in knowing that I was going to come back and work on it next. So with the nose, the colors that I use are baby pink and camel, and those two colors make a really nice flesh color. And then I'll add the Cardinal red to that mixture to do the shading around the edges and on the bottom, and I'll add that I'll add white to that color to do the very highlighted top of the nose. And when you do that one on the top of the nose, really make sure that your paint's wet, and that will allow you to get a nice blend on that nose. Sometimes I'll get that nose a little bit too big. Just remember, if you get the nose bigger than you want it, you can always, after it dries, paint over it a little bit with the color of your mustache or beard. So just a little trick. Or if it gets really lopsided. Once in a while I'll get a lopsided nose and I'll have to take an edge off a little bit, and that's what I do. I just take and go over the edge of it with the beard and or the mustache, whichever one I'm doing. And remember, just that shading, you just want to go around that edge real dark and then kind of blend it up. And then the very, very top of that nose is where you're going to want it to be light. I just wanted to put a little star on the tip of that hat. So nothing fancy, just a little white star. And then I did add some gray along the edges just to give it that appearance that it wasn't, a 1D solid color object. I wanted it to have some edges with some color so that it just gives it kind of it pops off the page for you, like you've got a 2D product there. It's not just that flat white. So I just gave it a little bit of gray around the edges. Now we're going to start working on that mustache and beard. So some of my gnomes, I do just a straight beard. And then some of my gnomes, I do a mustache and a beard. My favorite is the mustache and beard. And if you watch any of my other videos, I have a sheriff cowboy gnome, and I actually put a handlebar mustache on him. But my favorite is a mustache and a beard. Just seems to give them a lot more character than just a beard. So I'll lay down a little bit of dark behind that. The reason for that is it gives me a base to put the lighter colors on. And so it kind of fills in and gives you back behind it, you're going to see that color. And the colors that you put on top are going to break it up a little bit so it doesn't hurt that it's a solid base behind it. Now, you do want to make sure when you do that the background is smaller than what you're going to paint, because you're going to want to have nothing behind those little wisps that come off the edges, so that they really show up, because that's what's going to give you that really cool pizzazz or that character for your gnome, is those little pieces of hair that's kind of wisping out there. So just make sure that if you put that dark in behind, you make sure and put it in smaller than where you're going to put your actual beard and mustache. And I apologize. I'm working in a different area in my house, and I have the camera set up different than I normally do. And so I kind of got out of the camera a couple of times, or at least got partially out of the camera. So I apologize. We're doing some repairs in another part of the house, so I had to move all my paint stuff. But I think you get the idea here. And I'm just going back in with, I'm using winter white right now. I also use wicker white. I use both of them. They're pretty much the same color. Winter white has a little teeny tiny bit of a darker hue to it. They have to be side by side to see it, but it does have a tiny bit of a hue to it. So, and so I'm just going back in with some white. And I'll also go in with just a few strands of black and a few areas of gray, depending on how it looks as I'm doing it. So you kind of have to put in your colors, sit back and look, pull away from it, put in a few more colors, pull it away, and just gauge how much of each color. I can tell you right now, the fullness of the beard and the mustache depends solely on the contrasting colors, that light and dark and medium color being in there and being very crisp, that you can see them laying on top of each other, is going to be what gives you that fullness and looks like you've got a full beard and a full mustache sitting there instead of something on a flat surface. I paint predominantly on natural rock. I just love the way things look on natural rock. But if you're just starting out and you're just learning how to do those little wisps and learning how to use your detail brushes and your line brushes and playing with the paint and learning how the paint works, it's not a bad idea to do a cover paint on your rock before you start. So you could paint the entire rock one color and then let it dry. And when you do that, you really need to let that dry overnight because you're going to put a bunch of colors on top of it. Let that dry and then go back in, and then you can paint again. When you do that, you've done two things. One, any porousness of that rock is going to already have sucked up paint, and so it's not going to suck up your paint when you put it on. And two, it's going to be a much smoother surface. When you have that smooth surface, it's so much easier to get those really fine lines of that hair in there. So depending on how porous and how rough a rock is, I might do a solid surface behind it. But I can tell you, if you go back through my videos, there are very few that I do that with. I stick it out and just deal with it and do the best I can with getting that hair in there because I really like the look of the natural rock. Now, once you get that hair in there, you're going to go back in and you're going to put those arms. I did them red. You can do them red. You can do them blue. You can do them whatever color you want. And there's not much arm showing, so we're just going to add a little tiny bit on each side. And then we're going to start putting in that firework. And you can pause this now that we're at the firework stage so that it's outlined and you can draw it into your picture looking at the picture that I've got here. Super simple, like the easiest sketch you'll ever do is this little firework. And I know I'm going to have to put another color on that firework, so I do the bottom first, only so that while I'm working on the top, that bottom can be drying. And while I'm working on the bottom, the top can be drying because I'm going to be putting a color on it as well. I try not to have to stop very often. I try to be able to record straight through and then just cut out the pauses or anything, you know, where I'm mixing colors or whatever. And so I don't give my rocks a lot of time to dry in between, but when you're doing this at home and you're not recording, take your time and really let some of these dry. If you think about it, you know, we put, at times I'll put 3-4 layers of colors on something, and that's a lot of paint. So you want all of those layers to dry really well so that they don't pull through to the next color. For anybody who is new to this hobby, I haven't talked about paints in a long time, but I use a multi-purpose folk art paint. You can buy it just about anywhere, any place that has hobby stuff. It's inexpensive. It's a couple of bucks for a bottle. A bottle will last you a long time. You can buy it in sets. If you buy it in sets, it's less than $1 a bottle. And it sticks to the rocks really well. I've painted with a couple of acrylics that haven't stuck real well to the rocks. So these stick very, very well. And that means a lot to me. I don't want to have to go back in and repaint a bunch of stuff. So also, I don't use resin to seal my rocks. I give all my rocks away except for the ones that people ask me to do every once in a while. So resin's really expensive and it's tedious and it's a lot of time doing it right. So I tend to use spray on my rocks. I can use a high gloss spray. I can do 3-4 layers. It's quick, it's easy. I can do several rocks at one time and it doesn't take a lot of time or material. And that too can be bought at just about any hobby store or hardware store. Just a clear glazed, clear gloss. Please make sure it's clear. When I first started, I had grabbed 2 bottles of clear at a hardware store. Somebody had moved things around and one of the bottles was not clear. It was white and I sprayed about 7 rocks with it. It ruined all my rocks. So double check it. It just happened to be sitting in the wrong place. And again, I read the first one, but I didn't read the second one. So you don't want to ruin your rocks. And then you're going to go back in right at the very end and you're just going to put a few more little wisps in. And it just looks like that hair's laying, you know, on top of things and looks like it's real. Looks like it's really supposed to be there. I did put the little dots on the hat, so don't forget to do that. Guys, thank you very much and we'll see you in another week. Have a great one.